And have you done, in the last few years, any sort of spoken word at all?
No, no, because you can always, well, like with the acoustic thing, you can throw that in, and I always like it more with music. I heard these Henry Rollins records. I don't know if you ever heard those, where he's just speaking, and he has a lot of humor in it, so it carries itself in the way he does it, but there's very few spoken word stuff that I really like. There's a couple of Richard Burton, the actor, I think he's doing Shakespeare, and these are just great to listen to because his voice is so strong.
Hey, you watch an old movie with him too. It's amazing how much presence he had, how forceful he was.
Incredible
before he disintegrated or whatever.
Yeah.
See here. Just for personal, have you seen Russ Oldman recently over in Europe or anything? He's been over there for the past 4 months.
I don't think I've seen Russ Oldman since, like, I don't even remember what year it was. I think 83, somebody from EMI Records gave us some money to go do a demo tape.
At Bearsville,
At Bearsville, yeah. Which probably wasn't, in retrospect, a really good demo tape. I mean, I don't think I even have a copy. I think it was released on some little record, actually, lately, because someone sent me a vinyl of it, and it said, blah, 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 these 3 tracks were originally...
it's on, like, Skyclad Records or something like that. I picked it up myself.
No, I haven't seen or heard from any of those guys. I think the bass player passed away, I heard.
Yeah, Kevin did a few years ago. He had pneumonia and a heart problem at the same time. It was not a good thing. What's this television tour like? Where have you been already? Is it basically the States now that you've done Europe, or where are you going to be out for a while?
Well, we did a week in Japan, which is about as much as you can do there. And that's one of my favorite places to play, actually, because it's beautifully designed theaters where you can really hear everything, and I don't know, they're just so careful and quick about everything. Like, you walk into a sound check and it's done in 10 minutes, and the lights are good, and everything's really just well organized. And then we went to Europe. We just did France and Scandinavia, basically, and a show in London, so we got to go back there, I think, in the spring. And then we just did some East Coast dates and Canadian dates. So we probably stop next week, and then we go out again in late January.
Now, speaking of France, any French poets that you've been reading lately? Any chance, or someone you could turn us on to?
Not that I've read lately. I mean, I think when I first moved to New York, being from Delaware, you don't get exposed to those, things. And then when you're I don't know, 16 or 17, and you're walking around New York, and you start to read this kind of expression that you really get turned on by, like, oh, look what people have done with words, and look, there's something really inspiring about it. But I mean, I don't think I've read any of these guys in 20 years now.
I think you got the idea, basically, and you applied it to yourself, and that was it then.
Well, yeah, you saw that people were not, it's like what is it, Alice in Wonderland? Is it Humpty Dumpty? It's like, there's a character, I think it's Humpty Dumpty, they're talking about words, and this guy is saying, are the words going to be the master, or am I going to be the master? But with that, he implies that he can use the wrong word for the right thing, or the right word for the wrong thing. And it's actually a kind of psychosis when you go into it. But to me, there's something else in there where you don't have to be confined to the kind of rhetoric you get at least I got when I was growing up. So much of everything is conditioning, and so much of conditioning is language. But anyway, I suppose reading some of those poets at a certain time really lit me up somehow.
What about Patti Smith? Have you seen Patti recently, and what do you think of that stuff she did with her husband on that German movie, End of the
I like
World?
that piece, actually.
Yeah,
the thing I like about her most still is her voice. I think it's just a shame she doesn't make records. Even if she did cover records, she's just got an incredible voice. And I just got a Christmas note from her, like, about 3 days ago, actually. I haven't seen her in years. But she does have a tiny new little book out. It's called Hanneman Press, I think. These books are about 2 inches high by 1.5 inches wide. Have you ever seen these?
No.
Yeah. Actually, I may do one for them. The guy who runs has been after me for like 3 years. And there's the Ginsberg one. I think there's 40 of them now. There's a little William Burroughs one. There's just about everybody. There's even a wacky Bob Dylan one of his, when he was in his really heavy religious period. He did these little speeches and things. And these are like way off in terms of religious extremism and almost fundamentalist, you know. But yeah, that just came out last month. They're nice books. They're actually printed in India and just woven together by these fishermen. So it's like good for them because they make some extra money and they fit in your pocket. In fact, about 5 of them fit in your pocket, I guess.
Great for munis.
Yeah.
I don't want to take up too much time, so a couple more questions. On television's first album, of course, the picture was from Robert Mapplethorpe. Who did the artwork on this new one?
This is a friend of mine in Germany, like 5 years ago, actually just sent me a bunch of Xeroxes of, she's a painter, and included in this were these scientific drawings of Leonardo da Vinci. And it's about a month before the record was done, I found this file, and I thought, what is this? I didn't even know what it was. I couldn't remember. So I was showing it to a lot of people, and one guy actually knew what it was. He says, yeah, this is part of his weapons designs, and this was some kind of weird catapult system, you know, to fling rocks over castle walls or something. But it just it's actually 1/4, the CD cover is actually 1/4 of the whole drawing. It just, I don't know, it just had a flavor to me that looked good. It has a strange balance, but motion going to it at the same time, I think.
And any visual artists that you've seen in New York or in Europe recently that you've been particularly struck by their work?
Any visual artists? No, not really. I mean, there's a woman named Susan Hiller, who's American but has lived in England for probably 20 years. She did this cover for Flashlight, working on a 60-cent photo booth portrait and stuff. She's probably my favorite living visual artist because everything she does is really different. One show is very conceptual, and the next show is actual paintings, and the next show is like wallpaper with paint, but it's all... She actually trained in anthropology, so she's coming at it from... She always has a very... It's not just aesthetics with her. Like you look at it, and there's a kind of impact that has to do often with... She did one really great piece, which was it took up most of a room. It was a park bench and a tape, which you would put on the headphones and listen to. And then on the wall were a series of color photographs, which had then been printed, so they weren't shiny, of tombstones, all next to each other. But these are English tombstones, so they're about 1 foot wide and 1/2 foot high. So it looks like a series of concrete blocks photographed and names on it. And if you look at the dates, you realize all these people died really young. And as you listen to the tape, you realize all these people died saving somebody's life. Like the tape goes like, John Sullivan jumped off a bridge into a river, drowned while pushing his sister onto the shore. And it's like, it's really an amazing work because it incorporates this genuinely heroic element that you just never think of, this kind of thing that goes on. And she did another really wonderful piece, which was she collected these turn-of-century kind of, what is that technique? Tinted photographs of this one particular, almost like tidal wave that crashed in England, I think, and I don't know when, but it's just over and over, just slightly different angles of this wave on a beach. And this is, I don't know, again, there's something really elemental in this. It's not just the plastic rose on the wall or the empty bottle on the pedestal kind of aesthetic Duchamp move. There's something else going on with all her work. And I think she still has a work in the Tate Museum, which is a video actually, which is basically an 8mm thing transferred to video of a fire crackling in a fireplace with this voiceover that at first you think is a complete, like a joke, because the person's whispering like this the whole time, you know. But actually what they're telling is this whole story about in England, I think it was in 1979, 6 people on the same night. The BBC, I think it still does it, how do you say, stops broadcasting at 1 in the morning, and often people fall asleep with their TVs on. And the legend goes, here's the story, it's fairly eerie and interesting, that on the same night in 1979, 6 people fell asleep in different parts of England with their television on. And all of a sudden they were awakened by this very strange face on the screen coming on after broadcast is shut down, and this voice telling them about an Armageddon. And naturally all of them were completely terrified. You know, a couple of them thought, oh, this is a hoax, and they called the BBC right in the middle of the night, and they said, well, there's no broadcast going on. We don't, you know, what is this, a joke, an alien being talking about Armageddon on TV, you know? But one guy got it on video, and of course the BBC and Scotland Yard insisted on seeing it right away, because they thought, well, somebody's broadcasting from somewhere and we want to pick it up, but this tape has disappeared, although I'm told you can get a transcript of it. Anyway, that's one of Susan Hiller's pieces, using this a woman telling this whole story over this video. It's a very eerie mix of like of humor and like kind of thoughts.
Yeah, that's great.
Anyway, she's my favorite visual artist. Last I heard, she just taught down in is it UCLA, Pasadena or something for 6 months, and she's always coming up with something totally different. You know, it's probably why, in a sense, she's not as successful as some people are, because there's no style there. It's just each piece is unique on its own, you know.
I read this interview once with Julian Schnabel, who's become not one of my favorite people, but in it he said that at one point in his life he was looking around his studio and realized that there was no logical progression to his pieces. One didn't look like the other; they all looked different. And he goes, "At first I thought that was a curse, but then later on I found out that it was a blessing, and I've worked with it since then."
Yeah, there is a real consistency with Schnabel, though.
Yeah,
I mean. I'm not sure that Schnabel really has a style, and I frankly don't think his work's going to survive. You know, I think he was the noise of stockbrokers buying paintings cheap and selling big in the 80s. You know, I think the most you can say about his work is it's highly physical, but that's I don't know. I'm not keen on Schnabel. That
sort of triumvirate of him and Anselm Kiefer and Sigmund
Polka. Yeah, but Kiefer's
Kiefer and Polka are
way up there. Yeah. Way up there, especially Kiefer, especially in terms of German history. And Polka, actually, there's a lot of Warhol in Polka when you really start looking at it. But these guys are
way cooler.
Way cooler. Sorry, Julian.
Well, Tom, why don't we stop right there? It seems like a good place to end. Thanks a lot.
Alrighty.
Well, do you want to do a hits and progress? Say this is Tom Verlaine on hits and progress.
I can do that stuff.
Okay.
Sorry.
Where's it back? Right back where the machines are. Yeah, I wish they would come.